Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so glad you're all here. We're almost 70 people, which is fantastic. So, yeah, my name's Lorna. I'll introduce myself properly shortly, but today is really about a student data roundup. So you may have seen that we've been sharing a lot of data and been polling students regularly, and we've been publishing that on the site. But we also thought it might be a really good opportunity just to spend some time together, give you guys an opportunity to ask us lots of questions and have a conversation together about the data as it stands at the moment, what students are telling us, and having a chat about what the future might hold. So in terms of me, I am Lorna Greville. I've worked at the student room for the last couple of years. Prior to that, I worked at the University of Surrey, and before that worked in agencies. So super lucky to have been working in marketing for a really long time, and absolutely blessed to work in higher education and absolutely love it. Many of you will know me already because almost all of my job is working with universities, which is a gift. And yeah, hopefully over the course of this whole time, we've been trying as much as possible to support you guys and give you the stuff that you need. So today, we'll cover a short timeline. I think it's just a really good place to start to have a think about how far we've come. It has been a really long, more than 2 months now we've been in lockdown, and an awful lot's happened in that time. So just an opportunity to reflect on everything that's happened in the last couple of months, as well as a little look at that timeline in relation to how students have been feeling and kind of what they've been telling us, but also just kind of our approach. So the way that we've been talking to students and how we've been feeding that to you guys. We'll then go through what students have told us. So this is just an opportunity to go through all of the polls that we've been going through. So I've kind of cherry picked those polls. There's been an enormous on list, and many were not related to you and not relevant. But certainly if you guys have any more questions or would like to know more about what we're doing poll-wise that maybe isn't directly related to either education, their future, or mental health, then certainly let me know. We'll also have a look at those unanswered questions. There's an awful lot out there that we just can't answer, and that we kind of there's no way to kind of give an answer right now, and have a think about that, and then we can go through a Q&A. But I'll also just be taking you through really briefly on those unanswered questions about what the next month may hold. We'll be looking back at data from last year, which is sometimes misleading, but I think it's about looking at previous data and having a think about what that looks like in our new normal. Cliche, but accurate. Okay, so let's start then with kind of how we got here. So coronavirus arrived in the UK in January, which is less than 6 months ago, which is completely crazy. So fast forward to March when kind of everything kicked off. So first off, on the 18th of March, we found out that GCSE and A-level exams had been cancelled, and at that point there was no idea about how students would be getting their grades and what the future might hold. So immediately students are thrown into, and universities thrown into, massive uncertainty. On the 20th, schools closed properly, and actually it's only a couple of days later that the grade calculation was confirmed. We can talk a little bit about that, so and how students have felt about that, because it's been quite contentious. And then just 3 days later, the UK went into full lockdown. On that same day, universities were told by the OFS not to push out unconditional offers. I think that had already started to happen. And I think, you guys, universities, admissions teams, of course, I really know that the motivation for giving out unconditional offers at that time was primarily about making sure students felt totally certain and secure about their place at university. Because as we know, actually, GCSE grades and predicted grades are a really good marker of where students might land. I think it's only about 16% of predicted grades are accurate, but based on kind of that trend over time, it's really normally quite easy to see where students are likely to land. And of course, that's what you give offers on, which is awesome. So an awful lot happens in March, towards kind of in those last 2 weeks of March, lots of stuff, and it throws the whole country, and particularly these young people, into vast uncertainty. Fast forward to April. And then the Universities Minister finally confirms what will happen with vocational and technical qualifications. Again, during that time, BTEC students in particular were feeling super, super uncertain. And we worked a lot with Pearson around that and talked to them about what, they were also kind of in the dark about how that would work. And I'm sure for many universities accepting BTEC students, it's quite uncertain because so much of it is around observation and key skills. So that's certainly kind of potentially more challenging than the grade calculation for A-levels. Then we had confirmation that fees will stay the same, and there'll be no fee refunds for current students at university, which again, I'm sure you all know has been met with mixed response. But at the same time, the UCAS had also decided to extend the decision deadline to the 18th of June. So again, combination of kind of good for students because they will need more time to consider their options because so much is up in the air, but also even more time for students to be living in that state of uncertainty in regard to them, and also for universities. You know, it's not just students living in uncertainty. So I guess for you guys, maybe potentially more challenging knowing that you won't know your full farms and acceptances until mid-June. That's still 3 weeks away. One final thing that I think everyone felt was going to go down well, 16th being kind of April, being confirmed that A-level and GCSE results will be staying the same in terms of the same date, so 13th of August for A-levels. Now, in lots of ways, that's nice, you know, some stability, some way for students to feel, okay, well, at least, you know, that thing's the same. And I know that that was the intention for UCAS and also universities, but I think actually it's kind of slightly misfired in some ways. So students have certainly been talking to us about how unfair they feel that is for them and the reasons, and we can talk about that shortly. And then finally May, so I can't believe we're almost at the end of May already. The time has flown so quickly. So yeah, early May we had student number caps confirmed, so kind of forecast plus 5%, plus extra places for healthcare, which is really positive. And I think, I mean, my feeling, and obviously please tell me if you think differently in the chat or in the Q&A, I think that broadly number caps were received quite well by universities themselves. I think students had felt slightly worried about it, but obviously the plus 5% makes a big difference. And also many students just don't understand it. You know, it wasn't like when I went to university when there were clear number caps. These students have never lived in a world where there's no caps, and so many of them just didn't understand what it meant. Moving forwards, and I think, you know, a couple of weeks ago, Manchester had confirmed that all their lectures would be online in semester 1, and then just a couple of weeks later, Cambridge last week confirmed that all their lectures in the next year up until next summer would be online. And I think that it's a bit of a line in the sand there, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how all the different universities are going to be dealing with teaching. There's so many ways to go about it, and I really hope that there's still going to be lots of ways for students to engage with the university on campus and online. And I do think that this will change teaching at universities forever in a really, really positive way that will enable hybrid and blended learning and just basically push us all into the future a bit more quickly. I guess that's a bit of a silver lining and maybe a bit of a glass half full approach, but I have so much faith in the sector that is what will happen. So we've been through an awful lot, so much has changed, so much has also stayed the same with mixed response, but during that, kind of students were talking to us on the site. So obviously the student room is a forum site. Students come to us because they need answers to their questions, and we do a lot of sentiment tracking. So this graph here shows between the 16th of March and 16th of April, the stress, anxiety and worry conversation. So essentially we filter all posting by word, so things like anxiety, depression, stress, closures and stress, closures and anxiety, uncertainty, depression again, worried, anxious, scared, through all the words, worrying, stressed, overstressed, stressful. So we've used kind of all of these words that would indicate where students are feeling, how they're feeling, and then had a look at the data and then match that alongside what's happening in the news. So this graph you can see here, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of posts about students and their feelings. So big spike initially there, you can see on the 18th of March in which student school closures takes place. That actually goes up when kind of that last day of school and the announcement of the calculated grades. So I'm sure that comes in lots of ways as no surprise, but I think, you know, that steep curve at the start is shocking and sad. Move forwards to kind of the 30th of March, so kind of almost a kind of over a full week really, where I guess students were kind of, they dealt with those feelings and then kind of moving forwards. Then the conversation about student number caps comes in play. Like they don't really know what it means, but certainly is a concern for them. And then the 3rd of April is when those the actual grade announcements were kind of how it's going to be calculated was announced. So you can see those big spikes. directly in relation and directly related to what's going on in the news, in the press. And I think it's really interesting to see just the impact that these things made. And even on the 30th of March, so potential student number caps being touted by the press, it's not even confirmed, and straight away those students are feeling anxious and concerned. They don't know what's going on. So you can just see how much all of this information makes a massive difference. And so whilst new information can drive stress and anxiety, it also does provide some sense of certainty. And I think a lot of these things are the big changes, and they're not solutions. We're in a state of crisis, and this is where we're going to get to. And the opportunity moving forwards is really provide more information that's supportive, that still provides answers to where they are. And I think at the moment, students are looking ahead, both at their schooling and their university studies, and just having no idea about what that's really going to look like. So that's kind of a bit of a timeline of where we were and how we kind of got to the place we are now. In terms of kind of our approach, there's been so much going on, and I think I'll talk a little bit shortly about just how much this has impacted the engagement with the site, which it's a difficult one. Like, it's really nice and lovely that students feel safe to come to talk to us in the student room. It's also makes me a little bit sad that they don't feel they have anywhere else to go. So we are trying to support them as much as possible. In terms of our approach, and I guess, this is kind of why I'm talking to you today, we've prioritised at every single turn how we can, firstly, understand students so that we can help them, but also understand students so we can help universities, education providers, the government, kind of lots and lots of different bodies that are interested in students and what the future means for them. So kind of as soon as we went into lockdown, we saw these massive changes in engagement, of what students were talking about. It also became really apparent that universities weren't going to be able to have open days. So immediately we started asking students what would be useful for them. How do they want to get information from universities? How do they want to experience universities and careers? And so they told us really quickly, they told us that they love the idea of virtual open days, they love the idea of webinars, they love the idea of things like guest lectures and online lectures. They can kind of get a feeling and a taste of what university might be like. And as quickly as possible, we got that information out to you. And also, if you missed it, so a couple of weeks ago, myself and a colleague, Taylor, also ran a webinar all about meaningful digital experiences. So ultimately, our approach has really been find out as much about how the students are feeling as possible, and then for me to bring that information to you, along with my colleagues, Marissa and Katie, and then also from we have a team that look after these students on site, specifically for them to go to them and look after them as well. So you may actually not know this, but we've also started a series called TSR Answers, which is basically kind of all the questions that students are having, bringing a panel together to help answer them. So again, last week we had a session for students, for our audience directly about, so we had Ofqual was on there, Pearson was on there, answering questions about exams. That was their biggest concern. And then tomorrow we're hosting our next session, which is all about how this whole situation may impact university experience, which Nicola Dandridge will be part of. So certainly we can send those links around, tune into that. It is for the students, it's not for us necessarily, but we are absolutely trying our best to make sure that both you and students are supported as much as possible in a way that we can provide, get the information and give it back to you as quickly as possible. In terms of kind of the scale of change, let me just talk to you then about what students are doing on TSR. So again, I've kind of split this out between March and April. May also isn't over yet, but hopefully we'll have a bit of a roundup of where May landed as well. So, oh no, move forwards a bit too quick there, so sorry. So March. In March alone, there's a 13% increase year on year of users on the site, unique users. Now, 13% is massive growth in itself, but for those of you that don't know, the scale of the student room is absolutely vast. We average 8 to 10 million unique users on the site a month. So to have a 13% increase in users year on year is vast. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people. That transpired not only in those kind of increase in unique users, but also in engagement and conversations on the site. So of course, the student room is a place that students come for answers. And whilst there was a 13% increase in users, there was a 28% increase in conversations across the whole site. Now the site is split out into life around learning, which could be relationships, health, jobs, their cars, fitness, sport, hobbies, but also then into study help, which are kind of self-explanatory, and then also into university courses and then unis and colleges. So in March alone, we saw a 134% increase in conversations in study help. Now, that's unsurprising. This is where that vast uncertainty was coming from. They had no idea what was going on and frankly were not happy with the decisions that were made. I don't think there was any other way around those decisions, but nevertheless, you can kind of see the impact that it's had on students, that they are just asking question after question after question with no real clarity about what that's going to mean for them. Not only was that kind of the whole situation impacting students and posting conversations on the site, it also impacted our own kind of marketing. So we send out solus emails that are from us, so we have newsletters, and of course we also send out emails from university partners and career partners and brands, etc. So what we saw in March is a 98% increase in email open rate versus before, and then engagement again, 67% increase in click engagement on email. So I think what all of this shows is not only are these students looking for answers everywhere, they're also more engaged with everything because firstly they have more time, and secondly they are just looking for all the help they can get. You know, I think what's really interesting also, a friend of mine, her children go to private school, and I was absolutely astonished about the incredible way that this school had been able to support those students. Now, that's an incredibly privileged and unique position to be in, where this GCSE and A-level students, of course, their exams are done, and yet they've put on additional study things, kind of like the A-levels you wish you'd have chosen or could have chosen that you didn't choose. So her daughter's studying Italian and philosophy, which she didn't do for A-level. What an amazing way to do that. But for many state school students, they aren't having teaching. They're kind of left kind of out in the cold a little bit, which is this is not a judgment at all on any kind of school or approach to educating your children in any way, but you can just see that students are left a little bit alone and need all the help they can get. And so this is where we're seeing these massive increases in engagement and just desperately looking for answers wherever they can. In April, again, we kind of still see massive increases. So I've split this out between posting and page views because I think these are all quite interesting. So posting across all of April, we're looking at year-on-year is 27% increase, but we saw a big decline in page views in study help. Again, that's no surprise because normally in April, this is perfect time for revision, and there's no revision to be had. There's no coursework to be done. There's actually no work to be done at all for the rest of the year, kind of as it stands, particularly for those year 11s and year 13. So we've seen a massive decline there. However, of course, what we've seen there in universities and higher education colleges and uni courses in massive growth. So we've seen a huge increase in universities and HE colleges in terms of posting, 83% increase, which is vast, and then a 53% increase in uni courses. And then in terms of page views, again, really consistent. So we're seeing a much higher rate of increase in posting and a still really high rate of page views. So just to put that into a bit of context in relation to kind of different markets as well. So about 30 to 40% of our audience each month is from outside the UK and outside the EU. So interestingly, the highest increase in overall posting is actually from the wider EU outside the UK. Of course, we're not in the EU anymore, it's tragic. We've also seen a 39% increase in posting year-on-year for international users. So that's all users outside of the EU and the UK. And then the 35% increase year-on-year in posting from UK students. So the impacts of COVID and the impacts of changes in exams, changing in universities, we know there's a massive impact on both EU and international students. And of course, I think those EU students outside the UK, they've got the double whammy of Brexit maybe changing things for them, but at the same time, COVID having a massive impact where they may or may not be able to travel outside their own country. Lots and lots of changes, big concerns there, which is unsurprising. So as you can see here, students are just turning to us, turning to the student room, turning to one another, and also turning to you where you have a university partner pack and an official rep. They are seeking information from you. I have seen vast increases in posting in specific university forums, and I'm sure hopefully your account manager has been sending you your university partner pack reports. Definitely, if you don't have one, or if you don't have a partner pack, get in touch with myself or your account manager so you can go through that together and have a look at what the conversations are that they're looking at in particular. So kind of this is the student room and that kind of our data, but what I want to talk about now then is around what students have told us so far. So if you've been keeping up to date with the fantastic hub that Marissa put together, which is our COVID resource hub, you'll have seen some really useful infographics sharing some of this data, but I want to go through it again now, and I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions. So the Q&A box is open. Please, any questions you'd like to ask the students, pop in there. Any questions you have about anything I'm talking about, please pop them in there, and then we'll go through it all together at the end. So write them in there. If we can answer them as we go through, I'll absolutely do that, and I'll have the question and answers open in front of me as we go. So please do use that. So what have students told us so far? Okay, so first off, I kind of mentioned this earlier on, and I'm sure you guys know this already, but we asked students what they would find most useful about finding out more about university. So obviously open days on campus can no longer happen. So what do they need? What are they looking for instead? Now, unsurprisingly, virtual campus tours and virtual open days is exactly what they want. You guys are doing a lot already, and I've seen massive investment there. I've seen some really, really good examples. Just a shout out to Birmingham City University. I think theirs was one of the earliest ones online. It was absolutely fantastic. I'd recommend everyone just having a look at that, and I can't wait to come along to some other ones just to see what else you guys are doing. So Ruth, you've just asked a question about whether the slides we shared with attendees. Yeah, absolutely. So the recording and the slides we shared next week, next Wednesday. No problem. You're welcome. The other kind of key things that students are looking for, I think what's really interesting, we did split out webinars versus virtual open days campus tours, but of course, virtual open days and virtual campus tours are often using a webinar platform. But I think there is a distinction in the students' mind around a webinar being maybe a bit more formal, and maybe a virtual open day slightly less formal and more kind of, dip in and out. Also, they're really interested in live streaming events and also online AMAs and guest lectures. So in terms of live stream events, this is where you absolutely should be using things like Instagram Live, 100%, Facebook Live, absolutely. I think the audience we're talking about is primarily on Instagram or TikTok, so use those platforms absolutely. But also things like, I think I mentioned TSR answers earlier, come along to that and just see how that works. The team have done a great job of getting all that updated really, really, really quickly. The next poll is about students changing their minds. Now, are you thinking of changing your uni choice in light of coronavirus? What's fantastic is that 84% of students were saying, no, not going to change, it's all good. But 15% said yes. Now, 15%, it's really positive to see so many students, I think, are not thinking about changing. Obviously, this was back in March, this is quite a long time ago, but 15% is a really, really big potential impact. If you forecasted 1,000 students and 15% don't turn up, that's really not a good place to be in, is it? So I think the opportunities here are really about finding out a bit more about why they're thinking about changing those, and I can talk to you a little bit more about the work we've done, a little bit more in depth than just polls around that, and how I can kind of share those bits with you. So mostly positive, but certainly a big challenge with those 15%. So it's the minority, but it's still a beefy number. Secondly, so are students worried that a student number cap would affect their place at uni? So yeah, this is at the end of March. We're talking almost 2 months ago now. So 60% said they were worried about it, but 19% said they weren't sure. And I think this is where, again, you kind of used to see, like, they don't know what it means. They don't understand it. There's a big number of people that just don't properly understand what it means. I guess the no's going to be those really confident students that know they're AAA and are absolutely golden. And those yes students, I guess, of course, if they're thinking that it's going to go from, a number cap of 1,000 down to 500, it's going to be really, really challenging. And of course, that is, there is a risk for them there for sure. But I think I would hope that they'd be kind of more, obviously this is before number caps that come into place. I hope they were reassured now that have, you know, this plus 5%. I think, you know, the risk is probably there for maybe insurance universities, where actually those kind of like third or higher tier universities, maybe if they all suck up that 5%, that's going to be a real challenge, sure. And there's a question about whether there's updates. Yes, there are updates. I'll actually go through that shortly around the changes in time. So I'll just go back one slide. So I think about changing your university choice in like coronavirus. So that was on the 23rd of March. In terms of kind of concerns about number caps, that was the 30th of March, and then we skip ahead. This is the 4th of May, so we're moving forwards a lot, and we've kind of broadened out the responses. So with caps and no fee changes. So I guess now we're moving forwards. We've got more information. We know there's going to be caps in place plus 5%. There are not going to be any fee changes. Are they still planning on attending university in 2020? So again, positive in that 67% of people are saying, yeah, if I get a place, I'm there, I'm going for sure, this is fine. And this is not that long ago, this is 3 weeks ago, so that is super positive. We still have 15% of students that are unsure what they're going to do. And I imagine a lot of that lack of certainty and their feelings of not being sure, broadly because they still don't have all the information. From their university of choice, they don't know whether they're going to be on campus. They don't know whether they will have any teaching on campus, whether they can get accommodation, what that means for when they move in at all. Like that uncertainty is completely understandable, really. There's also kind of almost 12% of students planning on deferring. I guess it's more like 15% with the kind of gap year UK international students. So it's. I think I'm sure you all know. I guess you all have plans around deferral. I think it will become very apparent very quickly that there are no jobs. They cannot take some amazing travel gap year somewhere else. They can't go and volunteer in Malawi or another third world country where they can, you know, feel super virtuous. Those things are not going to be possible. And so not only is university a fantastic choice, regardless, it's absolutely the best choice currently. I don't know if you guys follow a couple of guys on Social Chain, but there's a big conversation around that one. Once Cambridge had confirmed their no lectures up until next summer, there was a big conversation on LinkedIn around this, and I found it very interesting how many people are like, well, I'll just get 3 jobs like I did when I did it, you know, 10, 15 years ago, or I'll just go and get an apprenticeship. There's clearly a real blindness around what this is going to mean for young people, because the 3 jobs were probably retail and hospitality. 2 major areas that are not going to be open for quite a long time. So I think as reality sets in, and as you guys start sharing that really valuable information about what you're going to be really doing for students to help them and to bring learning to life, and how all your amazing, there's going to be star academics that are going to go, like, use everything that Zoom's got, use everything that Blackboard's got to make learning incredibly interactive, really exciting, really fun, which it always is at university anyway. There is going to be those people that are going to make a massive difference. And again, if you can give a taste of that to students so they understand what it's really going to be like, that it's not just going to be PowerPoints on a slide, hopefully, that it's going to be interactive and exciting, they're going to meet their future cohort. That's what will make the difference. And they'll be like, oh, okay, so I thought maybe not, but actually this is really good. And I can still move into accommodation or whatever, hopefully, if that's the case. So as information comes out from you guys, and as you have a better sense of what teaching will really look like, all of these things I think will level out. But I do also think there'll be a little disgruntlement around the fee point. So obviously this is a really big conversation, and we just have one quotation here from one of the users on the site. So this user says, this is one reason why A-level results, they should have been made earlier. So I think I mentioned this earlier. There's a big of anxiety once those dates were confirmed, and the reason is that whilst results day is going to be on the 13th of August, 3 weeks later replacement exams start, and so these students are going to have no opportunity to really A, revise the subjects they do or don't know whether they're going to need to revise for, and B, will they even be able to go to university if they don't get the results until March. So this is one reason why A-level results day should have been made earlier. There is going to be more uncertainty than normal, but still the same amount of time to sort all of that out. This places even more pressure and stress on students, parents, teachers, and university staff. yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I can really understand how this user would feel, for sure. I'm also just going to take you through now just a whole load more quotations from students on the site talking about a lot of this stuff. And I think I love qualitative data. I love I love quantitative data. I love seeing those numbers and seeing those trends over time. But I think the qualitative piece is really interesting because it gives you an insight into really not just the answers to these questions, but how they're feeling more broadly. So I don't even know what to do anymore, sad face. Got an offer to do a degree with the foundation year, but I don't know whether to defer that, but it would still be 4 years and I'll be even older, even if I hypothetically do study the degree. So again, students really, I think I had this worry. I was like, I can't be behind. I just have to get my degree as quickly as possible. Imagine the student maybe a little bit older, maybe they come in for an access course or something similar like that. Lots of concerns in relation to how long it's going to take them to actually qualify. Next one, I don't want to be alone in a new place if things are still in lockdown. Unable to meet new people or interact properly with a new place. It's got me feeling pretty lost, to be honest. So even if accommodation does open up, how can we, as a sector, how can you guys make it a really, really still interactive, fun experience where they can still meet new people, where they can still socialise? How, you know, this is not, the onus is not purely on universities here, but how can we reassure students? And actually, how can your tourism boards, how can the cities that you guys are in also have a think about, you know, making their cities kind of safe again. Postgrad student, again, of course, like postgrad has been through the roof recently. Lots and lots of people thinking about doing the master's levels. Lots of friends of mine that are younger than me, all of their friends are thinking about, you know, they've been furloughed or they've actually been made redundant already, and they're like, well, what do we do next? Go and do a master's, really, really easy. So this student says, I'm conflicted on whether or not I should defer my master's place at the university for a year. I'm really excited to move on to postgrad level, to live in a new city and stay in academia, but nobody knows what things are going to look like in September. I don't want to be stuck at home doing online classes and paying £9,000 for it. I think we're going to see this a lot more and more and more again. I think, you know, the big conversation around value in higher education has cropped up repeatedly before, before all this happened, you know, £9,000 a year has been raised again and again and again, and the cost of higher education has been under scrutiny. Now, I've worked at university. I know the running costs. It's expensive. You know, it's people first. You can't not have lots of academics to kind of support these students. But you can understand how they may feel that, you know, if they don't get the full experience, is it fair that they're going to be paying this kind of fee? And this is a master's student also querying it here. I'm just going to whiz through some more quotes here. So online teaching is tough since there's no routine, and that's what I miss about being at university. How can we give these students more routine, more purpose, more ways for them to fill their time, you know? I feel that this whole mess eventually will die down by 2021, so it's not like I'll be missing anything major or a big part of university life overall. Above all, I just really don't want to defer a year. It already feels as though my life has been put on hold since lockdown. I need that comfort of knowing that I'll be moving soon. Positive person, this person is not worried. They know it's going to be changing, but they also know that they'll be back to a different kind of normal down the line, which is so true. And I do think there are a lot, you know, this is people feeling good don't share their feelings. It's like, you know, restaurant reviews or holiday reviews. People only talk about it when they have got something to complain about. This student is fantastic to hear that actually they're like, well, it is what it is, and I want to go to university. And I do think there's probably a lot more people feeling this way than planning on changing, as we've seen from those polls. Just a couple more. I'm pretty optimistic we'll be able to go to uni physically by September and have lessons there, so I've decided to go. Of course, social distancing will almost definitely be in place by this time, which could really dampen Freshers Week as well as the whole uni experience in general. So they're feeling good about being able to go to university, but again, that social aspect will be missing, you know, unsurprising. And then just one last one. So I don't want to be in that's just a repeat of the previous one. I'm so sorry. But again, yeah, just kind of people, it's that social experience versus the education experience. They kind of know where they're going to land. I'm just going to quickly look at the time. Okay, cool, we've got time. Lovely. Okay, so moving forwards, then I'm just going to touch a little bit on some other audiences where you might be able to make an impact and make a difference. So first off, 2 polls for kind of a broader range of students. So first off, if you're in year 10 or 12, do you feel forgotten by the government? Yes. So I think the massive focus, completely understandably and rightfully, has been on year 11 and year 13 because it's, you know, the big differences for them. However, year 10s and year 12s are going to be missing out on an entire semester of proper teaching. And we have no idea the impact it's going to have on them next year. They haven't been able to take mocks, they haven't felt that pressure, they haven't had even just the opportunity to learn like better revision skills and revision techniques. That's going to be a challenge. And again, how can we start engaging with year 10s and 12s, particularly year 12s for the universities? How can we start talking to them, making sure that they know that they're not forgotten, and engaging with them and bringing them in and giving them an opportunity to learn and grow? They've also missed out on things like UCAS fairs, and they're missing out on just starting to think about their future in this way. Well, everything else is pushed towards the side there. And then, are you getting enough relevant information from the government? So 75% saying no, which is unfortunate, and I'm sure kind of recent events in the government will not help that. There's not much that we can do about that, but I think again, you know, what's interesting is they're not getting enough information from the government. However, the government are doing a daily briefing every day. I mean, I have the government alerts for everything for Climate for Higher Education. There is a lot of information coming out every single day, but it doesn't address their very specific, very unique need. And so I think, you know, all the changes coming up, it's going to depend on the universities have applied to and where they want to go and their insurance and firm choices. So I do think this, you know, particularly for their future, for kind of year 13's future in particular, this does come back to the best ways that you guys can communicate with these students, which is basically a lot, you know, the more you communicate with students, really the better. And then just one final poll here, and again, this has been in the COVID resource hub that's on the TSR Matters website. So this is a really important poll. So this had more than 4,000 responses. Not it was more than 1,000 individual responses, but basically we asked what factors affect your mental health right now. Now, of course, you know, last week was Mental Health Awareness Week. I think that every day should be Mental Health Awareness Day. In honesty, you know, living mentally well is essential for a happy life. But so there really are kind of two major things that sprung out here. So firstly, things impacting mental health are just lack of purpose and routine. I'm sure, like, you know, I'm so lucky to be working. Everyone here, we're all working. So, I mean, thank goodness for that. And, you know, those of our colleagues, of our friends that have been furloughed, we know it's really challenging. It's really challenging to just be completely lost. Your whole, you know, year 12s, year 13s and year 11s, the whole last 2 years has been leading up to this point. Maybe the whole lives, the whole educational life leads up to GCSEs, A-levels, BTECs. You know, all of it leads up to that, and suddenly it's gone. That is really crazy. What a strange, painful experience to go through. So total lack of purpose and routine. Of course, they're feeling that way, and mixed directly in with that uncertainty around their education. So basically, education has disappeared because there's no exams, but also their future for either A-levels or university education or apprenticeships or career apprenticeships. All of that is just, it's out the window. What was going to happen, now we don't know what's going to happen. And of course, how could you not feel massively anxious around that? Again, kind of I mixed in with the education piece is that uncertainty around future career prospects. And then as kind of move down, two other ones that are really, really important are also, you know, loneliness and also concern about loved ones getting ill, which breaks my heart. I'm sure we've kind of, all been feeling like that. And we all know somebody that's been very, very poorly, which is incredibly sad. I guess the reason I'm kind of raising this is also that kind of these answers are the reason we started to do TSR answers for students, so that a lot of this is around uncertainty. A lot of this is around lack of purpose and routine. So, you know, we're putting in these weekly events for them to have something that will fill that time. If we can all do something that will fill some of that time and give them structure every week, amazing. But also if we can provide any kind of certainty, any kind of surety or support around their education and their future, that will also make a massive difference. So this is why I'm sharing this with you here. So this is the point at which I'm going to kind of pause on a look back at the polls we've been doing. As I mentioned, there are an awful lot of other polls we've done that may not be directly related to you guys. So again, if you have questions you'd like to pose to students, please put it in the Q&A, and we can certainly, firstly we can talk about it now, but also we can push it towards our community team that are doing these polls and this research. So just to kind of key takeaways around these points. So firstly, uncertainty absolutely rules the day. So you need to communicate with these students potentially more regularly than you would normally. Maybe you have a kind of a weekly email that goes out, or you have a Facebook group, or you have another way. The more ways you can connect and talk to these students, the better. And also, the earlier you can get information out, the better, particularly for your insurance and firm students. So how can you find, these are students that are going to be paying you £27,000, maybe more over the course of 3 or 4 years. It's absolutely worth your while to support these students in the best way, to just give them something to look forward to every couple of weeks, every month, have an event in that is related to the university experience, but it's also about helping them connect with you, and that will eventually give their week's purpose. If every student's applied to 5 universities and every student is invited to an event from each of those universities every 2 weeks, what great things to look forward to, what great things to engage with, and just give them purpose and time that is about them and is not about our goals. Again, what I would say here is maybe refer back to the webinar a couple of weeks ago around meaningful digital experiences, which will give you lots of ideas about best ways of going about that. And then particularly for things like, we're talking about year 12 here, the early engagement starts now. They're all on the student room. They're on the site now. They're feeling lost. They're feeling forgotten. You can start engaging with them right now and make a difference in their plans for their future. I think we're all experiencing, universities are brands. We're all experiencing brands in different ways. Camden Beer sent my husband free beer because he works in the NHS. Love it. I will be buying Camden Beer probably more often now because they clearly have responded in a way that I really support. So how can you now engage with year 12s in that early engagement piece, and potentially earlier than year 12s, to make a difference for them? And then finally, I touched upon this before. So yeah, events online are both wanted and expected. These students are expecting it. Of course, we're expecting it. This is how everything's going now. At the moment, they do expect it, and they're looking for it. And if you provide it, and if it's a really good experience, they'll remember it. And again, just look back at that webinar from before. So those are kind of the main key takeaways around. There's a lot of data there. There's an awful lot that we could all do for these students, for sure. But it's just an opportunity to have a think about that in a slightly different way. So there are a whole load of unanswered questions. Now, when we think about unanswered questions, it's kind of like peering into trying to work out information that exists and doesn't exist, and matching it all together and trying to work out what students are thinking if they're not asking already. It's an absolute minefield, and probably will feel like this. I personally am not very good at maths, so this whole gift gives me massive anxiety. But unanswered questions, here we go. So first off, will they get the grades to get in? They don't know. They haven't been able to find out. It's an absolute minefield. Will their grades be good enough? And will their grades be what they deserve? I think there's been I've seen conversations about students feeling like they're just not going to deserve to get into their amazing university they're going to, and how that's going to feel. Like, the exams are not just about getting to university, they're about sense of self, they're about personal confidence. How much teaching will be on campus in the autumn semester? We don't know yet. Can I still move into the halls? We don't know yet. Will the online teaching actually be good? We don't know yet. Will I be able to use the labs or any other facilities? I know that a lot of you guys have been like stripping out all reference to facilities and taking out those images in your advertising and in your emails, because you just don't know if students can have those yet. Will there even be a Freshers Week? So these are like tip of the iceberg for questions that we know students have that we have no idea for the answer for, and that there's lots of planning in place. And no, I've talked to you guys a lot. There's a lot of planning going in place in the background to work out these answers. And you've got scenarios for one scenario, second scenario, third scenario, fourth scenario, blended, online, all on campus. I know that you guys have been doing enormous amounts of work to really, really help students in this way. But we don't know the actual answers yet, because we don't know when the next peak's going to be. We don't know any of these things. So kind of my key takeaways really here is you don't have to know all the answers. Students have a lot of questions. They are really anxious. You do not have to know all the answers. But what I would say is it is incredibly valuable to share what you do know, what you don't know, and also how you're trying to work out what the next step is going to be. Now, it doesn't have to be dates. You don't have to say, we're all going to let you know exactly what's going to happen on this date. But just knowing that you're working towards that, knowing that you're doing lots of scenario planning to make sure it's super safe, super helpful, that it's going to be the right way for you, that you're investing loads into, maybe time rather than money, into making sure that online learning is going to be still really interactive and valuable and engaging. Making sure that information is what you're sharing. You don't have to know all the answers, but it is worth just talking to your current students and prospective students about what you're doing to get to the answers. I know it feels, very, very risky, and universities are naturally risk averse. Big institutions are naturally risk averse. I absolutely understand that. But radio silence and a black hole of information will get you nowhere at all, and students will really appreciate you trying to share as much as possible with them. And something that I know you guys are doing already, you really do have to be empathic and understanding. I know that a lot of you are doing this now, and I think it's really, in times of crisis, it's so easy to default immediately to very formal language use, to towing the party line, having absolute clarity there. But this is a time where it's really difficult to, you can't have a hug, not that you'd hug students anyway, but it's really, really important now to be as empathic, as human as possible, so that these students understand that you're thinking about them and you care about them, whether that's current students or prospective students. And then just really quickly, a bit of a look ahead. So those of you that have a university partner pack and are able to use the official rep online, you'll be receiving at the moment, every month, your university pack report monthly. So in those reports, we every single month have 2 word clouds. Firstly, for the keywords for the month ahead last year. So the April report included a word cloud for both May and for June about the key conversations that are happening around education during this time. And I just want to talk you through the June one. So this word cloud shows all of the kind of key conversations, key words that were related, that talked about in unis and uni courses and HE colleges in June last year. Now, I do always say that the past previous data shows you what happened in the past. It can't predict the future, and that is true. But that doesn't mean to say that we should ignore it. So, of course, we're in a different world. Coronavirus, as it stands now, did not exist in June last year. However, what's really interesting, of course, is that despite this being June, I'm going to use my mouse. I hope you can see my mouse here. So the big word is September. They are talking about their future straight off. And of course, in June, they're finishing their exams. Of course, it makes sense to start looking to the future. They're also, big thinking about masters again. These students are finishing their exams at university and what I'm going to do is probably do a master's, or love their time there, just want to carry on, or thinking about doing a PhD, of course. I was absolutely in that camp, loved my final year and went straight to a master's. But I think here's a really, really interesting point that's really worth looking at. So there's lots and lots of smaller words that are directly related to budgeting and money. So if we have a look here, we've got cost, rent, scholarships, worth, expensive, lots and lots of small words that are related to budgeting money. Whilst we're in a new world, money, if potentially kind of more than ever before, is going to be a challenge this year. So not only is there going to be lots of conversations and continued conversations around the fee rate, lots of these students are going to have parents that have been furloughed or lost their jobs. And lots of these students are going to have parents who are freelance or self-employed, and also lots of these students are going to be living in really expensive areas where £2,500 or kind of yes, that's the max, isn't it? The max is that it can be £2,500. There's lots of people where that's going to be a massive strain on their finances. Particularly for single parent households where maybe they're paying a mortgage and for 3 kids, that's going to be a real challenge. And so looking to the future for next year, this is where there may be more of a consideration for staying closer to home in terms of money. There's been lots and lots of conversation around whether students do want to stay closer to home because of money, but then there's lots and lots of anxiety around using public transport, where maybe they could live at home, but they actually, you know, I'm from the Midlands, my local university would have been the University of Birmingham, or maybe BCU or Aston, but I'd still have to get a train, I'd still have to get a bus. That's scary when you're kind of in this situation, versus just going to living halls and walking to campus, where you can kind of control an awful lot more. There's a lot going on there in terms of, in terms of the money and in terms of planning for the future. So again, any information, any videos, blogs, events, webinars you can do for the students or for the parents to support them in terms of budgeting and planning money-wise, it's going to make a massive difference. I think, you know, lots of universities on open days do a great session around accommodation and money at university. If you can make sure that's kind of pushed out as almost as its own thing, and certainly talking to students on the student room about it, that will make a massive difference for sure. So I've talked a lot about kind of just polling, and we have this word cloud here, all of which point towards certain things, but we also are really, really lucky to have our in-house market research agency, TSR Insight, which is run by someone that many of you will know, Julie Vincent. So the work, TSR Insight have also been doing some more comprehensive research and insight projects. So we've just finished and published the April, which covers March and April, which is wave 1. So these are called Navigating Changing Options. And so the focus is all about helping, like, where students are at in terms of their changing options and how they're going about making those decisions. So the first wave is available now for everyone that has a university partner pack. So if you have a university partner pack and myself or one of the team has not been in touch with you, please just message me. Either my email address, which will cover, which I'll have at the end, which you can have a look at. I'm just going to check the time again because I feel like I'm running out of time. A little bit. So yeah, just get in touch and I can absolutely send it your way. And then wave 2 will cover May, and I've missed a Y off a sentence there, so sorry. And so again, those of you that have University Partner Pack, you are probably going to be trialling the New Lead Gentle, which is fantastic. So the trial will start on the 1st of June. And so if you take up that trial, then the second one will be available in June, and hopefully we'll continue to do some more of these really, really in-depth survey pieces of work that are directly related to these students and their decision making. Really happy to talk about that another time, and I'd hope that Julie would also do a session about that potentially at some point as well. So certainly, get in touch with us about that, and I can send it your way. So just something kind of like these last points in terms of taking a look kind of to the future and the best ways you can kind of use this data. So firstly, really consider what support and advice you could provide about the key issues that arise in the coming months. So, you know, as based on kind of what we've just seen in terms of that word cloud, accommodation, money and budgeting are going to be really, really key. So the next up reports will be out in 2 weeks' time, and that will also then look to both June and July, and then again we'll have a look at the start of July for both start of June for July and August as well. So that'll be July. Nevertheless, there'll be lots more data that we can share with you, and also you can talk through with your account manager, you can talk it through with me around what that data really means to you and the best ways to respond. The second point I'd say here is just use the resources available to you. So we are trying really, really hard to get as much out to you as possible. I'm so glad that so many of you have joined today. About 90 people joined us today, so thank you so much for coming along. And I know that many of you have to leave now to get off to meetings, so thank you for everyone that's stayed the whole time. But yeah, use the resources available to you. There's so much out there. I think it's really interesting to have a look at kind of the sources, you know, like ourselves, but also, you know, lots of agencies, Natives, Havas, everyone, SMRS, like loads of education. You've got a great blog at the moment, so there's loads of fantastic resources out there. Use all of them and have a look at where those overlaps are. There's going to be a lot of things that are saying the same thing, and there's lots of things that will be saying things differently. So I think it's really good to kind of have lots of places to get the information, and certainly we'll try to continue to support you as much as possible and gather as much information as possible from students to help you make the right decisions. And yeah, of course, yeah, get in touch with me or your account manager to receive the Navigating Changing Options report. If you don't have a University Partner Pack, absolutely kind of talk to me about that as well, and we can get you set up not only with the Partner Pack, but also a lead generation free trial and also this Navigating Changing Options report. Really, really happy to help out as much as possible there. So there's lots and lots of things in terms of the data and what's available to you. Just use it for sure. Now, I'm just going to finish up with a key takeaways summary, just going through everything we've talked about and distilling it to a kind of few key points about what you can do to make a difference for both your institution and also for students. So, I'm so sorry, I speak a million miles an hour, just conscious of time and that I know we're all super busy. So first off, regular communication is key. You will hear this from it. You know, those of you that come to multiple webinars with me, you'll hear this from me every single time. Communication absolutely is key. Be human. You don't have to know the answers, but you do have to talk about what the answers, like, you know, the questions that you don't know the answer to, you do have to talk about that stuff, 100%. And really, really focus on empathy and that human connection piece. Really consider also the support and advice you can provide for students around the issues that are coming up. So first off, it's money and budgeting, particularly next month. And of course, I'll be sharing more information about that, and your account manager will be doing with your next report. Start your own engagement now. I can't stress this enough. I think, you know, year 12s, even year 11s, like these students are choosing A-levels thinking about university. You know, they're thinking about their careers, they're thinking about that stuff. If they're choosing between BTEC and A-level, they're choosing which courses, which subjects. The earlier you get to these students, the earlier you can engage with those students, the more you can help influence them and help them make the right decision for them. So particularly for year 12s, that starts now. They're feeling neglected elsewhere, they haven't had UCAS fairs. Speak to them now, 100%. Find something that's going to be related to them specifically. This is a no-brainer, I'm sure you know this, but I always like pointing out the obvious. Online events absolutely are essential. Whether it's, you know, engaging your firm's insurances or running sessions for parents as well, will make a massive difference. And again, it's about building a relationship with those students and their stakeholders, you know, their key people. It's really, really important. And then just a last one, again, pointing at the obvious, but just use the resources available to you from the student room webinars and official training that we've got coming up as well to navigate and change that report, and also loads of other insight reports. There's so much out there at the moment, and I think I really wanted to make sure you had all the information from us available for you guys. But there's loads out there, and it's really, really good to just build up a tapestry and build up a landscape of what the future might look like, for sure. Cool. So I guess those are my 5. If you take nothing away, those are the bits I really would say are essential. Thank you so much to Emma and Simon. Thank you so much for joining. Yep, see you guys later. But now let's just go straight into a Q&A. I'm really conscious that we have 2 minutes left, but really, really happy. There's been some really good questions, so I'm just going to stay on and answer them. And this is all being recorded, so if you do have to run off, just come back to this recording, and there'll be some answers. And if I can't answer them, then hopefully I can just contact you directly. So let's have a look. So how is TikTok used for virtual open days? Just curious. I think this is a really good opportunity to talk actually to some education specialist marketing agencies, because I know a lot of them have been focused on this a lot recently, and it's really well worth just having a look at there. So even just the tools inside in terms of how you can chop, change, and record things can make it just really interactive. And then even if you're not using it directly on TikTok or on other channels, it's just a good tool in that way to bring things to life a little bit. I think it's also, in terms of TikTok, it's really, we know that your audience are on there. You know that your audience are on there. So anything that feels familiar is a really, really good way to engage and talk to students, for sure. Thank you, Claire. I'm so glad you could come. And glad you enjoyed it. So next question from Alice P. Has there been any insights into what personal protective equipment, for instance face masks, students would like available on campus, or what measures they would like universities to take to ensure they feel safe? That is a really interesting point. We haven't had that, but I absolutely will take that straight to our community team and our insights team, because I think that's really a really key point for sure. What a good question. I'm sorry I don't have an answer, but I'll absolutely try to get an answer for you. Dan P. Bevan, thank you so much for your question. So mind change of policy from March 23rd. Will there be an update now the sector's stabilised somewhat? So we did go through a slightly later one that was on the 4th of May, but I think this is something that we'll be temperature checking quite regularly. And again, hopefully these kind of those changes will be published on the COVID resource landing page on the TSR Matters or website. But yeah, great question. Thank you so much. Well, I think we're going to continue to just sense check things with students, temperature check, find out what's going on with them, of course. So next question from an anonymous attendee. I'm so sorry. I would love to be able to talk to you more directly. So what is the best way to engage new university students on a new TSR platform to create that sense of belonging and to avoid students being in the background and lurking, but to engage and to be on the platform? Ooh, good question. Okay, there's definitely a few things. So firstly, so I guess you've seen on one of the polls that students were interested in things like guest lectures and also AMAs. So starting there is a really, really good start. So, you know, providing an experience. I think also it's so it's really easy and a kind of a small trapped slightly to think about our own goals only. And I think actually, you know, stepping back a little bit and thinking about what these students are going through, what's important to them right now, and going to that. So I think we've seen that kind of piece around mental illness, mental health, whilst that poll was directly about mental health, it also just shows what the priorities are. So their priorities are their education. The priority is the fact that they have nothing to do with their time at the moment. So again, how can you talk to students about stuff that's going to fill their time, that's going to support their education, and give them something of value? You know, that value exchange is really, really key. I think the other thing is just to say there's always going to be students in the background. There's always going to be lurkers. And this is where lots of different platforms make a massive difference. I mean, I think there's a big difference in terms of a combination of age and age, class, wealth, race, and gender. All these things will make a massive difference. So the more inclusive you can make it feel, the more that you maybe can provide somebody or people that the lurkers may well identify with. That's one way to get them out of their shell, because they'll feel it's a safe place to do it. But also, you know, my partner does not engage with anything. He's on every single platform, doesn't post anything, doesn't comment anything, doesn't like anything. He's just there to lurk. And there's going to be students out there that are exactly the same. They just want to absorb the information, they're happy with it, and they'll go away. And if they want anything, they might do it anonymously. And that's actually precisely the reason. So up until last year, in the accommodation, in the university space on the student room, no posting was allowed anonymously. There's other places, you know, like relationships and mental health where it was allowed, but not in that space. And actually we took that away. We've made it completely possible for students to post anonymously, and that's made a big difference as well. Because then, you know, there's literally no recourse for them. They can ask any stupid question they like. Sure. Simon, I think we answered your question. Do you have any data on UG students feeling about changing their minds and deferring that's been collected to MAPE? Yep, so we went through that. And Alice, that would be great. Thank you so much. Cool, okie dokie. So we are only 3 minutes over, but maybe that's because I speak literally a million miles an hour. I hope that you've been able to keep up, and I hope my sound has been okay. Normally you guys tell me pretty quickly if you can't hear me, so hopefully you've heard it all, which has been fantastic. So thank you so much to everyone that is still here. There's still almost 50 of you here, so yeah, thank you so much for everyone staying right to the end and beyond. We have more webinars coming up, so the next section actually might be really, really good for the question that we had from the anonymous person around engaging university students. So the next webinar will be alongside my colleague Grace, who is the community manager for universities on the student room. So we're going to be talking all about building digital communities. You know, the student room has the largest student community in the UK online, so I think we're probably really well placed to talk about that. And we'll be going through kind of the way that we approach it, and also just ways you can think about it outside of the student room and think about it much more broadly around what makes a community and what drives value for students as well. I think that'll be a really, really, really good session. Absolutely also stay in touch. Get in touch with me if you'd like to have any information about the University Partner Pack, about navigating changing options, about any other insights or anything else that I might be able to help with. Any more questions you have, always, I'm so happy to help, so happy to so happy to just provide as much value to you guys as possible, really. I think, you know, we want to help students as much as possible, and I also want to get the answers into your hands as quickly as possible so you can make the most informed decisions always. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope you have a fantastic day. Enjoy the sunshine, and we'll see you at the next one.